Okay, is everybody ready? I'm getting a bit of feedback as well. It's bizarre, isn't it? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this licensing committee. It's Monday, the 8th of July, and my name is Councillor James Gibson, and I'm chair of the committee. And I think we'll go around now to members and ask them to introduce themselves, please. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Councillor Tom Hinchcliffe, Bramley and Stanley Ward.
Hello, everyone. Lisa Martin from Roundhay Ward.
Morning, everyone. Councillor Sharon Hamilton, Moortown and Meanwood Ward.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Asghar Ali for Gipton and Hare Hills.
Good morning, everyone. Jordan Bowden, Councillor for Roundhay.
Hello, Kate Haig, Farnham Wortley.
Luke Farley, Labour Councillor for Bermondsey and Richmond Hill.
Morning, Councillor Ed Carlisle for Hunslet and Riverside.
Morning, everyone. Councillor Rick Downs, Otley and Yeadon Ward.
Lovely, thank you very much. And can I also thank officers for rearranging this meeting for us? Obviously, it was due to be on the 2nd, and for obvious reasons, that wasn't particularly practicable. And that's why we've changed it to today. And can I also remind everybody that this is actually being live streamed as always. So now we'll ask officers to introduce themselves, please. Rob.
Good morning, Robert Brown, Legal Services.
Apologies, Jason Singh, Head of Service, covering taxi licensing.
Good morning, everybody. John Mulcahy, Chief Officer, Elections and Regulatory.
Morning, Nicola Raper, Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning, Sue Duckworth, Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning, I'm Helen Gray, I'm the clerk.
Okay, Helen, can you introduce agenda items number 1 to 5, please?
Thank you, Chair. Turned it off. Reverberation. Under agenda item number 1, there are no appeals against refusal inspection of documents. Under agenda item 2, there are no items which require the exclusion of the press or the public. Under agenda item 3, there are no formal late items today or any supplementaries. Under agenda item 4, could I ask members to declare any interest that they may have, please? I see none, thank you. Agenda item number 5, apologies. We've received apologies today from Councillor Buckley, Councillor Holroyd Case and Councillor Senior. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much, Helen. Agenda item number 6, minutes of the previous meeting, which was on 24th of May 2024. Are we all happy with the minutes? Any matters arising that anybody would like to mention? And we're all happy to approve them. Can you give me a little nod? Thank you very much. And in that case, we shall move on to agenda item number 7. Gambling Act 2005 Statement of Licensing Policy 2025 to 2027. So if I could hand over to Sue and Nicola, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This is the triennial review of the Gambling Act 2005 Statement of Licensing Policy. We're required to do this under the legislation. Our licensing policy has a 3-year lifespan, and so we do this every 3 years. It follows the budget and policy framework, and therefore it goes to exec board scrutiny, exec board, and then full council. But it is our common practice to bring it to licensing committee first because it is your policy. We have undertaken a review of the policy prior to consultation, and we have made some amendments. So I'm not going to go through it word for word. You have a summary of changes in amongst your papers, but I did just want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, there has been quite a change in language around gambling, gambling harms, vulnerability, and so on. And that's nationally, especially driven by public health. There's an issue using the word vulnerable person and problem gambling in that it lays the responsibility on the person that is suffering from the addiction. Whereas there is a feeling now that we should be talking about gambling harms rather than problem gambling, and therefore we've amended the policy to reflect that. That was a fairly straightforward change. We've also had a look at the research that was undertaken by Leeds Beckett University for Leeds City Council back in 2016. That was done as a baseline assessment prior to the large casino opening, but is now used widely to describe groups that could be considered vulnerable or at higher risk of gambling harms. Previously, we've had quite a lot of detail in our policy about that, but we've stripped it back this time because we're now working much more closely with public health, and public health have got much more recent research that's coming through now. And so we've updated the policy to include that, and we've worked with OHID, which is Office for Health Improvement and Disparities, around the wording in our policy and so on. So I've had quite a lot of input from them on how things should be framed now. You'll also remember last year and the year before, we did quite a lot of work with scrutiny around gambling harms and the council approach. And it was recognised that gambling harms is a matter for public health and should be treated as such. And so that's also been reflected in the policy this time round. And then going through and as a whole, we've then updated a few of the requirements that we ask for the licensees, but on the whole, the main bulk of the policy has stayed the same. I would just like to bring to members' attention as well that we do have this cross-party, council group that works on gambling harms. We have the gambling harms group, Leeds Gambling Harms Group, which involves treatment services as well as financial inclusion, public health, ourselves in licensing, citizens advice and other third sector organisations. We work very closely and have done since 2016. And we are offering further members training in November around gambling harms. And that's it. Thank you. I take any questions.
Thank you, Sue. That was great. Any questions for Sue and Nicola? Yes, Tom.
Thank you. I'm very keen on the subject because I used to work in a bookies. I think we had this discussion at the training, didn't we? And one thing that did strike me and was slightly concerning was the kind of lack of involvement with people who have suffered from gambling addiction and people that work in the shops and see this every day. I just wondered if we could look into integrating that into our licensing policies. Thanks.
We do consult with every gambling business in Leeds when this goes out to public consultation. And we have been working quite closely with Gambling with Lives, which is a support organisation for people with gambling addiction. And the affected others, people that have people in their family who have been affected by gambling addiction. So we will do more consultation with those groups, and we'll see if we get any response through the public consultation.
Thank you. Yeah. What I was getting at in terms of speaking with bookmakers was actually speaking with the staff rather than head office, because it's a completely different thing, isn't it?
We write to the premises and we write to the solicitors and the head offices. So we do involve everybody. What we do find with the actual premises managers, they tend to pass it on to their area managers. So it's seen as a corporate issue, but we do specifically write to each bricks and mortar premises that we license in Leeds.
Any other questions? Yes, Kate.
Yeah, thank you. This is such an important area, and I think that, you know, in the past we have underestimated the harms that gambling can cause, and I think there's, you know, there is further work to be done, especially with things around gaming products and non-cash value prizes. However, that might be an issue for a government rather than a council. Anyway, I do welcome this report, and I think it's a really important one. Just on page 40, councils identify 10 areas where residents may be at most risk from harmful gambling products. On my copy of the paperwork, there aren't any areas.
Yes, we're developing a gambling harms matrix, and it's just about there. I just didn't have the information to put in time for this meeting, but it will be there for the public consultation, or if it's not ready, we'll take it out.
When those areas have been identified, is it the intention to work with councillors who represent those areas to do further work on identifying those harms in our communities?
Yes, I mean, the matrix will just give potential harm. We're not saying that harm is actually happening. What we've taken is we've taken all the data from all the risk factors that we're aware of. We've weighted it according to how confident we are in that data. And then that will bring up, like we do for the alcohol matrix, it will bring up areas that we think may be at risk. We do work really closely with treatment services, both the NHS gambling clinic as well as the GamCare community gambling clinic. So we'll be working with them around these areas as well.
If I can add also, the matrix will be used similar, like Sue refers to the Licensing Act. If we receive applications for those identified areas, it'll help to inform our response to those applications.
Good, that's great. Any other questions? We did have a really good presentation, didn't we, from Public Health? When was that? Was it last year? Do you remember?
I think that was in response to the scrutiny work that we did. And we brought a full report around gambling harms to licensing committee. Yeah, it was good.
Fantastic work that we do as a council. I mean, it's a drop in the ocean compared to, you know, a gambling industry that's huge and spends so much on advertising, isn't it? But we do everything we possibly can do as a council, and I'm very proud of what we are able to achieve and the hard work that you guys have done.
Thank you. I think we're recognised as a centre for good practice in this field. I know certainly that we are very regularly have other authorities directed towards us for the work that we do.
Yeah, there's an issue in regards to gambling that got brought up to children family scrutiny a while ago, and it's something that I'm interested in. There's a type of gambling that young people participate in, which isn't really necessarily recognised. And when I brought it up to officers previously, working in primary education for a very long time, it's one of like a big issue that comes up from parents actually. And a lot of games now being that they're online, there is a huge element of gambling, which is it's almost like a randomized. So if it's like a football game, it might be a randomized footballer who you can win. And it's just, and most of the time for the children is a reaction very similar to how you might gamble. They don't know what they're going to get. It often costs a lot of money, and there's always a lot of stress involved, especially from parents, with, in a way, the ease of access that a lot of children have. And, you know, my experience speaking to, you know, parents with children, it comes up quite a lot, actually. And obviously, you mentioned on page 32, like young people and being vulnerable and high risk of gambling harm. But I think for me, there's that element of you've got really young children being able to sort of participate in what is effectively, well, in my opinion, it is gambling. And there doesn't seem to be a plan, either sometimes locally or nationally, on how that sort of new type of gambling for young people might lead into when they're like 18 and then they can actually gamble in casinos, and we might see a higher spike of people starting gambling.
We work quite closely with Financial Inclusion, who do the My Health, My Schools survey, and they've just published their results that show that 20% of children have gambled, but they don't often see the gambling, the in-game gambling, as gambling. When you ask them what the most common gambling they undertake, they talk about bingo, which is not something that we would necessarily be concerned with. I'm aware that education are working certainly in secondary schools, but I think that's also being extended down into primary schools. That's something that scrutiny looked at and asked that we did. We did more work at a primary level around recognising what they're doing as gambling, because as I say, I think you're quite right. I don't think children realise that when they're playing a game and they open a loot box, that actually that is considered to be gambling. There's quite a lot of work within the council going through that. I have to say, from a licensing perspective, we don't have any involvement in the licensing of online products. We're just dealing with the bricks and mortar premises. Yeah.
Regulated for, or is it sort of a loophole?
It's something that I believe the previous government were going to look at, but and it's certainly something that was brought up through the white paper, but and it's around protection in gaming products, but obviously I'm not sure what's going to happen now.
Something else put on the list for us to write to the new Secretary of State for. Yes, Kate.
Just as a child-friendly city, is there a role for us in educating our children about those harms and the risks involved? I think that's something might not be for this committee, but something that we could pick up on a cross-council basis.
To write to the exec member for children and families. Yeah, come on, pop that on the list, Helen. Thank you. You've got some details around the ins and outs of this, so we can put together a letter. Yeah, cool. Okay, any other questions? No. Okay, right. Well, in that case, then, do we accept the recommendations on page 9 of the pack? Yes. Okay, well, in that case, then, we're finished. Again. Yes, so we'll go through the date and time of the next meeting. The next meeting is the really important one of the year. Can I just remind people that it is the Leeds Fest meeting? And last year, actually, I know we've done so much work on making sure that Leeds Festival is safer for the public. A lot of work behind the scenes, and there wasn't that many questions asked. So can you please make sure that we're asking questions and seen by the public to be showing a keen interest in making sure that the festival is safe, please. Date and time of the next meeting, Tuesday the 6th of August 2024 at 10 o'clock. Thank you very much, and that concludes today's business.